Hello, and welcome to this series of observations and forecasts from Adapta Consulting. Over the next few weeks, we will be looking at some of the opportunities and challenges facing the sector, and each week we'll be focusing on a different aspect of digital and information systems. We'll be hearing from specialists in CRM, data, user experience, resourcing and more, as we get properly to grips with the innovations and challenges of the new normal. To get started though, let's first look back at where we've come from over the last 10 years. So I've used the miracle of the internet to look back to 2011 and see what people were talking about then, where things had got to. Here's a screenshot of the BBC technology webpage from then. You might notice the interesting caption at the bottom. A momentous year with riots, revolutions, natural disasters and economic crises. Not much change, you might think. Let's have a look at the headlines in a bit more detail for the first 3 months of 2011. Well, again, 10 years on, not all that much change, perhaps. Facebook and Twitter, still pretty important. Blackberries aren't with us anymore. Apple and Android continue to be the mobile phones of choice. The rollout of broadband has continued, obviously, but many communities in the UK still have very poor internet access, and that's 10 years on from 2011. Back in 2011, one of my colleagues here at Adapta was also writing his predictions for the coming decade. There he is, tapping away. So, what did Keith think we'd be doing by now? Well, here's what he wrote for Civil Society in April 2011. Technology will bring donors and beneficiaries together. So this has been a widely held aspiration in the sector for some time, i.e. that technology should help bring funders and beneficiaries closer, that international NGOs in particular should step back from the relationship. How far that's been realised is more moot though, I'd say. Perhaps to do more with embedded processes and culture and attitude to risk than anything to do with the limits of potential technology. So maybe 5 out of 10 for that prediction. Prediction number 2. Technology will harness local knowledge. Locally based fundraisers will wrest control of the supporter database away forever from the charity central office. Specifically, Keith's saying the days of complex on-premise databases accessible only from a charity HQ are over. Well, technology has certainly harnessed local knowledge. Absolutely true. Absolutely true that technology has obviously made that much more possible, and the internet and cloud-based systems have speeded the decline of the 20th century push-based information model. It hasn't changed completely though. There are still quite a few complex on-premise databases accessible only from a charity HQ, and many smaller charities are still catching up. Some large ones are struggling to replace legacy systems. Nevertheless, a solid 8 out of 10 for that prediction, I think. Prediction number 3. Technology will enable a charity to truly understand what a donor thinks or tweets. 10 out of 10 there, I think. Social media has certainly established its place in the sector, as it has everywhere else. And in the last couple of years, Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp and the rest have been embraced by every demographic, including and especially those that some organisations feared would never feel comfortable with anything more complicated than paper-based systems. So what about prediction number 4? Technology will enable non-profits to deliver very, very personalised marketing messages to their supporters. Marketing automation is definitely one to watch for the next 10 years. Difficult to predict how it will play out though. A lot depends on what people are prepared to accept. If we go back not 10 years but 20, in 2001 TiVo was building up a strong following in the UK. For those who went around at the time, TiVo was a US-based precursor to Sky Plus. Linux-based, it stored recordings, let you pause and rewind, all the things we take for granted today. Importantly, it was quite intelligent, and it would suggest programs and films you might like based on your viewing habits. Very successful at the time in the US, and at the turn of the century it was steadily building customers in the UK. By 2001, TiVo sales in the UK were heading for 500,000, but then the people at TiVo did something that had worked fine in the US, but turned out to be disastrous in the UK. They agreed to tweak the software that made the recommendations so that, as well as suggesting things on the basis of your viewing preferences, it would add suggestions that the program makers wanted you to try out. The pilot program they did this with was The Kumars at Number 42. At the time, a new sitcom that the producers felt, I guess, needed a bit of help to get started. So the people at TiVo tweaked their algorithms to make the Kumars appear on everyone's list, regardless of whether it was a natural recommendation or not. The outcry was massive. I remember that. Sales collapsed, and within a couple of years, the total number of UK subscribers for TiVo had fallen to about 35,000. TiVo eventually recovered, of course, and is now the engine for Virgin Media's current proprietary system. All good. I don't know how those algorithms work now, but I doubt today's viewers would care as much. But the interesting question remains is, how subtle do marketeers and technologists need to be? It's a relevant question because subtle can equal technologically difficult, and technologically difficult usually equals quite expensive. So, notwithstanding Keith's point about technology giving us amazing insights, you can never tell for sure how people are going to react. If we go back 30 years to 1991, a company called Scion were just launching their Organizer 3A. Here's what that looked like for people who weren't around at the time. Lovely little thing, palm-top computer, literally. Now, at that time as well, laser printers had become much more reliable and affordable, and were starting to be used increasingly by organisations. Around then, I was invited along to the Salvation Army's offices in London to see what they were doing with the latest technology. Major Dad was in charge, I remember, and he showed me the process they were planning to use to speed up income processing. In those days, fundraising involved a lot of paperwork, and Major Dad's plan was to use a combination of technologies to speed things up. So, he showed me the new type of appeal letters that came out of the laser at a staggering 8 pages a minute. And his innovation, which was to produce a barcode at the bottom of each slip. The barcode corresponded to the supporter's unique ID in the CRM system they had, and he showed me the income processing team and their Scion organisers equipped with scanning pens to swipe over the barcodes before keying in the donation amounts. I was very impressed. Over coffee afterwards, Major Dad said the senior managers had been worried that the supporters would react badly to seeing the barcode and thinking they'd been reduced to a fundraising number. So they'd agonised about the size of the barcode and its position, and in the end, that turned out not to have been a problem at all. No one complained. Although that could have been due to the other thing Major Dad and his team did, which was to configure the laser printers to use a courier typeface so that the letters looked like they were still being produced on the Army's old Remington typewriters. Anyway, not a bad score overall for Keith there. How about the next 10 years? Well, as Keith has demonstrated, the prediction game is a tricky one. But it wouldn't be fair of me to end without having a go, so easy one first. People will, of course, go back to offices. The COVID experience will not change everything forever, and remote working will not become the norm. The 2020 lockdown has shown us that we can use technology to do many of the same things differently, but it has also emphasised the importance of traditional values and traditional ways of working, face-to-face contact in particular. So it'll be a mix. Conferences won't go 100% virtual, but they will evolve to include that option for people that need or want it. to be like books. Things will go very digital for a bit and then fall back to a healthy mix of channels and methods. Second, data will finally get a proper hearing at senior management meetings. That'll be because of two drivers. The weaker driver will be continuing pressure to comply with data protection and information security laws and standards. But as well as the lingering memory, for a while at least, of the impact of national emergencies on business continuity, the stronger reason will be the remorselessly increasing expectation that supporters, funders, beneficiaries, in fact, every stakeholder in whatever any organisation is about, will have a faster and faster response to every question they want to ask, whenever they want to ask it. Blame Google. Charities and others will need increasingly sophisticated automation to be able to filter those questions quickly enough and provide the answers safely. Finally, it's quite likely that overall the capacity gap between non-profit organisations and those in the commercial and public sectors will grow. I think that's because the speed with which digital systems improve, coupled with and fueled by the rapidly increasing user demand for more and still faster, will require successful organisations to invest continuously in new solutions, some of which will fail. Commercial organisations can do that more easily because the basic shareholder principle of risk and reward allows it. Organisations in the sector have traditionally operated to a different set of measures based on value for money, good stewardship of precious funds, and a generally low appetite, therefore, for risk. A small adjustment to that model might be enough in those organisations with the courage and capacity to change. We'll see how many will. It'll be hard. So, that was a look back at the future. I hope you found it interesting. Please do comment with your own thoughts. Meanwhile, we'll be back next time with another in our series of observations and forecasts. Till then, goodbye.
We could in fact argue that one of the main global trends is that technology itself is now developed with flexibility and adaptability in mind, and with a multi-sector target market. So if we accept, therefore, that the premise that our sector is now intrinsically connected to tech trends beyond our sector, what could be the next thing that may influence our sector, and what should we look out for? AI-based fraud detection systems detecting unusual transactions and spotting abnormalities. AI can help perform sophisticated data and analytics, for example to spot trends in a supporter's activity and identify the next engagement steps on a supporter journey.